Well, ladies first.
No, you can go first.
No, I insist.
No, I insist.
Well, what are you afraid of? A fate worse than death?
No, just death. Isn't that enough?
Are you going in there?
Yes, are you?
Yes. Right.
Right.
I don't see any light switches in there.
Well, neither do I, but there must be switches somewhere.
Shall I come in with you?
No! I mean, no, thank you.
Ladies first.
No, thanks.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic movie Clue 1 minute at a time. My name is Brad Gilmore. I am here in Sin City. If you were looking at me on video, you would see the roller coaster at New York, New York. You would see the MGM Grand Garden Arena, where the big fight is going to be going down. Canelo Alvarez versus Houston's own Jermell Charlo. 4 divisions, 4 belts on the line. Excuse me, the WBA, the WBF, the IBF, and the WBA. I don't know if those are right, but they sounded right. Anyway, Jeff, you can tell I've been in full promo mode here in Las Vegas. I'm joined by Jeff Smith, the general at hand.
I am here, and I'm great. I am here. If you could see me on video, you would see that I am in my elderly parents' den in Orange County, California, and not having nearly as much fun as Brad Gilmore in Las Vegas. But this is the closest we've ever been doing this podcast. I'm merely like 4.5 hours away from you. I can feel it.
Geographically speaking, we are on the same time zone.
That's true. That's a first as well, I think. Mm-hmm. And I've bounced around. But I would say geographically we're the closest, but also emotionally and spiritually.
Agreed.
Definitely the closest we've ever been here on minute 49.
Yes, minute 49 of Clue the Movie. We want to thank John Hatch for joining us over these last 2 weeks. I cannot wait to get his book, by the way, because I cannot wait for after doing this. For doing this for like a year plus now. The reason I'm excited about John's book is I'm going to read it and go, oh wow, I actually don't know anything about this movie.
Yeah, no, I feel the exact way. I feel like a total fraud whenever he talks about the total, like he gets into the minutia and like it's good stuff. I every time he talks about all the research that he's done, I think, boy, my documentary is a lot of fluff, but that's all right. Yeah, they make wonderful companion pieces.
You know what?
Real facts. Check out What Do You Mean Murder by John Hatch. And if you want to go with a weird dorky dude on a little road trip through an old movie, then come with me. Who done it? I did. And you can too. Screenbox.
Oh man, we want to break down everything that was happening in minute 49, and of course, check out Who Done It, the Clue documentary on Screenbox or wherever you can rent your videos. We don't have any, I don't believe, new fan emails, theories, queries, inquiries, reviews, or the like. Correct?
No, not. We've been getting a couple of different X's, if you will, formerly known as tweets, and those have been coming from people that are a few weeks behind. So that's kind of fun because they'll talk about, I'm on minute 22, and it's a lovely trip back in time to hear what we were talking about and where we were in our lives, geographically and emotionally back then on minute 22.
Yes. I do. Before we jump into
we
minute
don't
49.
have letters. We don't have John Hatch. We don't have anybody to lead on today. You don't. I probably do. You have the script? I mean, that's been our little go-to from time to time when we've had a minute. Well, this is a good minute actually. There's actual dialogue. The last two episodes, it's just been cutting up lots and walking through empty rooms.
There's been lots of lots. Tons of lots.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of lots. So I think, yes, we should go into what we saw in this minute in particular. It starts off with, actually, I thought was a pretty amusing exchange between Peacock and Plum, where they're neither one of them are wanting to go down the stairs. And Professor Plum saying to like Miss Peacock, are you afraid of anything more than, worse than death? And she's like, no, death's good enough for me. A fate worse than death. And she's like, no, death pretty much does it for me. I wanted to ask you this about that moment. Not only did I find it comical, and it was also showing their cowardice between the two of them, but the thing that it signifies to me, now I could be wrong because we know I'm wrong, but this is just looking at it in this particular framing. To me, they seem innocent.
Well, what's interesting about this particular performance, it's very subdued for these two characters, especially Peacock in this movie. Mm-hmm. This is and even the way it's shot, it's the camera angle is from the basement looking up as if something is down there. That's kind of in those kind of movies when the camera lingers somewhere else. It's kind of a subliminal message to the audience that either we're going to go here or something bad is going to happen here. I think one of my favorite examples of that is in tangent number one, Pulp Fiction, when Jules and Vincent are going to go meet, check out the big brain on Brad. And they go to the door and it's too early. It's not time yet. So they wander off and go down the hall, but the camera stays at the door because that's where we want to go. So for me, the angle for the basement is pretty sinister, and they're just very matter of fact in their fear. And this is the first time we get back to back ladies first. Everybody's very polite when they're afraid.
Well,
I don't think
here's the thing, though. I'm going to draw
also said ladies first, by the way.
Hi-oh.
We have a little bit of a delay on the Wi-Fi, so that laugh would have come earlier, folks, just so you know. That wasn't Brad thinking about it.
Just saying.
What does it mean? Yeah. Like that.
Well, other than shaky hotel Wi-Fi, one of the things I wanted to bring up was this, is I think there's a difference, at least in this scene, I think there's a difference between the dynamic at play between Plum and Peacock than the dynamic at play between Wadsworth and Mrs. White, and the dynamic at play with Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet. Here's what I mean. In this first part of it, it seems as though they are both frightened about what could potentially linger for them in the basement. Go back to your theory about the camera angle. It's dark. We can't see anything at all. They seem both legitimately afraid, like perhaps there is a murderer down there. Perhaps there really is someone else in the house that we aren't aware of. So, hey, ladies first, go get your head chopped off, and then I'll be here, still alive and able to run. Whereas if we go to the next frame where we see Mrs. White and Wadsworth, they are not afraid of what's in the rooms. They're more afraid of each other. And I think we see it again with Scarlet and Mustard. What say you, Jeff?
I say yay. And also, yes, I absolutely agree, because they're both fine going into what John Hatch revealed to us as a nursery, where Mrs. White and John Hatch and Wadsworth are going. John Hatch is in there too, by the way, where Mrs. White and Wadsworth are going. And it's definitely when they jump out to check to see what the other one's doing. And then what's interesting about the dynamic with Scarlet and Mustard is they're both trying to be the dominant character in their little search. You've got Miss Scarlet, who's definitely the dominant character in the entire movie, and Colonel Mustard, who thinks he's the dominant character in the movie. And even though he says ladies first, she immediately says no thanks, but they both have to be the first one to walk out from the bar, and consequently both get stuck. And this is an interesting thing because there's a theory that people have, and it's something that John Hatch probably knows. We don't. But it's something that people theorize about the movie Clue, is that the characters bump into each other a lot to simulate what it's like in the board game, where the game pieces sometimes end up on the same square and they have to work their way around each other. I don't know if that's true. It's a pretty cool thought if it is. I think in this case, it's more of a sight gag, and it's a good one. I can see Brad Gilmore on video, and he had a very big chuckle as Scarlet and Mustard tried to squeeze through that bar. And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Again, what I love,
Always the slapstick.
I've learned this about myself that I was not aware of. I thought that I liked snappy, highbrow dialogue. It's very, the Aaron Sorkin jokes, if you will, that are very well written. And in most people in the real world, it would take them 7 days to come up with a comeback like that. But in Aaron Sorkin universe, it makes sense. But I found out some self-discovery through this podcast that I just like silly, slapstick, goofy humor. Because every time someone gets poked in the eyes or kicked in the balls or stuck in a bar, I'm laughing every time. Like it gets to me. And by the way, I found out too, I'm the guy. I've now turned into the guy on the plane that I never thought that I would be. I'm sitting there on the plane on the flight to Vegas yesterday. I'm watching a movie on my iPad. It was actually the Harold Ramis directed, Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro, and analyzed this. And I was chuckling out loud on the plane. And the lady next to me, I was in the aisle seat. So the lady in the C seat, and then the lady who was right next to me in the E seat, were both looking at me constantly like, what is wrong with this human being? But I was laughing throughout that whole movie. Anyway, tangent. But back to what you were saying. I like the idea of the game piece characters bumping into each other as they do in the actual game. I think that's more of a happy coincidence. If we asked Jonathan Lind, he would say, perhaps, maybe, I'm not sure.
Or maybe they just bumped into each other.
Or maybe they just bumped into each other. But this is what I wanted to ask you. I was thinking about them being paired together. And I wanted to frame this hypothetical to you. Say that there actually is another murderer in the house, and it's none of the characters of which we are aware of at the moment, right? So we know it's not any of the game piece characters, Wadsworth or Vet. And you are split up, right? With you can only choose one of these characters. Who would you feel the most safe with if there was an actual murder in the building?
Mustard, for sure.
Oh, okay.
I would have to think twice, because Mustard would be overly confident that he could take on the murderer, and he would go first, and he would get killed. Then we would discover who the murderer was, number one. And number two, gives me enough time to run away. So I think he would go in because he's got the attitude, as we'll hear in a later minute, of what the hell, I've had a good life. And he leads his way down secret passages blindly. So I say good for him, because I wouldn't want to be the leader. I would be very much like Mr. Green. And if I were the one, I'd be standing at the bottom going, yeah, go ahead. Or even Plum in this very same scene. Yeah, ladies first, go ahead. I would be very, very cordial at this point with whoever I was. Like, after you, sure, go. It's like it's Halloween season right now. And right now people are going through, like going to Universal and different haunted mazes right now and haunted houses. I'm definitely the one that lets whoever I'm with walk ahead and take the hit from all the scare actors that are jumping out. And I'll catch the residue at the end. So I would definitely be with mustard. What say you, Brad Gilmore? The boat.
Well, I like your mustard idea. I do. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but I like your rationale. However, let me ask you this. Here's a qualifier for this hypothetical. Do I know what we suspect about Mr. Green not being the real Mr. Green? Do I know that he
No.
may not be the real Mr. Green? I don't. Okay. If I don't
think
know
so, because
that,
I don't think he's given any clue to that. Clue.
so ha ha ha! Look at you! Look at you! Look at you, Sorkin! There's a Sorkinism right there.
I said it way too slow. It's succinct.
But I think if I knew the information about Green, or I had suspicions that perhaps he was actually an FBI agent or somebody else, I would feel the most confident with him because I would know he would have training to deal with these things, right?
Well, that's totally different, of course, because then you could, like, once you go off with him, you could say, hey, I have a theory. FBI man. But then also, would you want to go with Wadsworth because Wadsworth knows the house?
Oh
Would
man,
you
that's another good
Wadsworth?
one.
Wadsworth is the
would
one that
know the
invited
best
everybody
escape plan.
there. So I'd be suspicious of him, of anybody in the room. I would be suspicious. I would be suspicious of Wadsworth. But would you be a hero and want to go with him to figure out that it is him? Or would you, because you suspect him, think, well, whoever's going with him is dead? How heroic are you, Brent?
You know what? I'm changing my mind again. I'm not picking any of the three that we've just discussed. I am picking the person to where if I was in a dark alleyway in this house or in a basement or in a nursery or in a study or a library, a conservatory, and the like,
The ballroom.
I would choose a ballroom. Thank you. I would choose a kitchen. I would choose the person who could literally fight fire with fire, right? Because if this person's a murderer who we're looking for, I would want somebody who's been down that road prior. So I'm going with Mrs. White.
Yeah.
I've admitted nothing, but I'm going with Mrs. White.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that too. But she'll get you easily, and she will chop off your head, and
Why would she do it to me? There's a murderer. She's going to get the murderer.
Yeah, it might be her. You have to, because are you now in this scenario? You are implying that we all know it's somebody else in this house,
right?
Okay. Well, then, yeah, you'd want Mrs. White on your side for sure.
Yeah, you want her side. She's a murderer. She's a murderer.
Who would you least
it's
likely
definitely not
want to?
Plum, for sure.
Yeah,
I don't want Plum. He's useless. Yvette, she's French. Maybe she knows something. She knows some sort of technique. I don't know. The French aren't necessarily known for their military prowess. However, they could have some sort of training or know some sort of secret something. I don't know.
Yeah,
they could know something.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel, but okay,
No,
look, and also, yes. Also, if I'm searching out for the murderer, we're talking about the person I'd least likely to be with. It's definitely Professor Plum. And the reason it's not Yvette is because if I'm going to die anyway, why not be with Yvette?
Sure. I get it. We all get it. Yeah.
Come on.
What a way to go.
What a way to go. Now, are we to imagine or are we to believe in this minute that Mrs. White and Wadsworth both think each other's the murderer?
Oh, I would say yes. And I'm trying to think, in all the endings, there's only One where Mrs. White commits a murder and she hasn't done it yet. So right now she is still murder free. Wadsworth hasn't done anything yet either. He will at the worst he shoots the singing telegram girl. So all their crimes are in the future. But Wadsworth, if it's the third ending where he's Mr. Body, he's just playing it cool. He's being like faux nervous.
Yeah. So I
There's
think
nothing to be scared of.
I think that I think that they both think that they're the murderers.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, though, I'm trying to remember back in our minutes when Body is killed and the cook is killed. Mrs. White was never we always saw her, right?
Right. Yeah. She's always there. It's either Peacock in her ending or it's Yvette in Scarlett's ending. And so, yeah, it's never Mrs. White. Going with that theory, if Wadsworth is Mr. Body, if that's the ending we're going with, I think he would still be suspicious of Mrs. White because she's a wild card. So she could, being alone with her, even if he has this great plan to get rid of all his informants and everything, she could still pull a fast one on him and strangle him, throttle, as he says later.
Throttle. You got to love the English or the British or whatever they are. I don't know how to say it.
Both
Is
of
it
them.
You would say that
Yeah.
you'd say they're the English, right?
You could say both. British would be a broader category, but since he is from England, you could just narrow it down. It'd be like saying we're North Americans.
The whole and look, I'm going to show my, I guess, American ignorance on this particular matter, but I would always be so confused with England, Great Britain, and the UK. Even though I know that there are distinctions, I would always confuse them. The Union Jack isn't England's flag. That's the British flag.
That's right. UK includes Ireland and Scotland.
Right.
And I know all this because I've just signed distribution paperwork for the UK and had it all listed out of where, how about that? That came out of nowhere. So it lists out all the territories. So I sound really smart right now that I know what's in the UK. But really, my United Kingdom experience comes from World Showcase at Epcot.
Oh, that's right. You're a Disney guy.
Yeah, and it's a part that you skip to go to. Well, unless you go to the pub, the Rose and Crown.
Now, I'm going to say two things right now before I forget them. The first of which is I'm probably going to be in Los Angeles in 6 or 7 weeks ish. So
What?
Just make note of that.
All right.
Early December, late November. It's a possibility.
All right.
The other thing.
All right. Hear that, everybody?
The other thing I want to say, we're reacting to this in real time. This just came out from CNN breaking news. An arrest has been made by the Las Vegas Police Department, which is where I am right now. Okay. They've arrested Keith D. in connection with the murder of rap icon Tupac Shakur. There's finally an arrest 17 years later for the murderer of Tupac Shakur. We're reacting in real time. In Vegas, where I am right now.
You're never going to forget that you were there, and you can see out. Wasn't it right outside the MGM Grand too?
Where he was killed, it was at Flamingo and Corrival, I believe, is where he was shot.
Okay.
Right. So I'm very close by. So that is strange news. Not what I was going to bring up, though.
Wow.
Not what I was going to bring up.
No.
What I was going to ask you. Now we're going to know where we are. We're going to remember where we were when the murderer suspected murderer of Tupac Shakur was finally captured 17 years after his murder, or longer than that, 27 years,
We're
excuse
on
me.
minute 49. Yeah.
27 years. Here's what I wanted to ask you. I recently saw you on the Instagrams taking pictures of the Whodunit Clue documentary in a store somewhere. Am I right about this?
Yes. Yes, it was at
Tell me.
the Amoeba Music Store in Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard. Yes. It was in an actual huge store on Hollywood Boulevard. And a gentleman by the name of Ryan James, who's a producer of a independent movie about the making of Kevin Smith's Clerks. It's called Shooting Clerks. I went and saw a screening of that a few weeks ago, and then posted about that on the Clue Instagram, just to say, "Hey, look at this guy. He's doing this." And then he added me, and then he sent me a picture of the Blu-ray in Amoeba, which I thought was very nice of him. And then I was down in LA at Universal Studios, just going to Universal Studios, and the Amoeba is 6 minutes away. So I thought I'll go look. And luckily, Ryan James was not provoked to purchase the Blu-ray because it was still there. And I purchased it myself. So I bought it. Because that's what you do when you create something and you find it in a store, you go buy it. And just so I have a copy of the Blu-ray with the Amoeba price tag on the front. So don't bother going to Amoeba Hollywood, anybody, to find it, because I bought the last one, unless they reorder it.
I will
which I don't know
if they. I will tell you as we start to wrap this minute up. I will tell you that so for whatever reason, and I'm not sure if it's because I guess books aren't big in Texas. I'm not sure, but my book isn't carried in any Barnes and Nobles in Texas. However, in almost every other state, it is carried in a Barnes and Noble. So when I've traveled, and I've done so a lot this year, I like to stop in, see if it's on the shelf. If it is, or if there's one or two copies, I don't buy it, but I ask permission from whomever's working there now. This is my new thing. I ask permission. Hey, I wrote this book. I'm the author of it. Can I sign the inside of it? Like just to have hey, boom, like if somebody buys it, it's already like signed. It's kind of a cool little thing, right? And I was told that by the first time I went into a bookstore and saw my book there, the guy who worked at that Barnes and Noble said you should do this every time you see your book somewhere as like a nice little like hidden thing. So I'm telling you this to say you should sign the covers of your documentary and just put them back on the shelf.
I'll probably get thrown out, but I went up to purchase it. I was really hoping the young lady behind the counter would say, "Oh, what's this? A documentary about Clue?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, take a look at the bottom of the picture. Did anybody look familiar down there where it says the documentary?" But she made no comment. She was not impressed. But good for her, because most of the time when I go shopping, I do get people making comments about everything I purchase, and it drives me nuts. This was the one time they'd say, "Oh, what are you buying?" The greatest documentary
what do you mean?
you've ever seen? Yeah.
People ask you what you're buying stuff for?
Oh, like, do you ever like go to the supermarket or Target and they're like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, what? Oh, this looks interesting." No, you're lucky. I buy things I don't like. I used to, when I would buy DVDs at Best Buy, I would buy, even if I went in just for one, I would buy three, because they won't necessarily comment or get an idea of what my movie taste is if I buy more than one. But if I go in just to get Tommy Boy, there's going to be a conversation about Tommy Boy. And I love Tommy Boy, but I don't want to have a conversation about Tommy Boy. So I have a lot of DVDs, or I did, that never came out of the shrink wrap because I just didn't want to have, I'm not good with people. I didn't want to have a conversation. So when self-checkout is a wonderful thing.
I love this story. Tell me it's true. Tell me you really were buying these DVDs.
It is-
Please
no,
don't
it's all
tell me
true.
this is true.
Yeah.
That is
so they couldn't-
amazing.
Yeah. Just so they couldn't hang their hat on anything. And it's kind of like, yeah, if I go anywhere, so like if I want to go get a haircut or if I need to go somewhere, I purposely wear completely nondescript clothing that there's no way they can make a comment on. I give them nothing. Black shirt, blue jeans. That was the best thing about Boston is that if you wore a Red Sox hat, nobody had a comment about it because everybody had a Red Sox hat. But now I'm back here in California, and if you wear any hat for any team, somebody's got a comment about it. And I can't handle it. Yeah,
I love this story. This is incredible.
anonymous.
I need to send you a Gilmore hat. That's what I need to do.
That's a good looking hat. I would love
I will
that.
send one to you. I will send one to you when I get
I will
back to
take
Houston.
the sticker off though. I don't keep the sticker on.
You're not a sticker guy. You know, I've gotten used to it in
that's the
baseball.
trend I know.
But Jeff Smith, we've said it all.
Yes,
We've talked about it all.
we said way
We
more
really
than I
pumped.
expected. I'll tell you that. I thought
We-
without our guests
we-
and without reviews to read, I thought, oh, what are we going to do? We haven't had to do this in a while, just us. And no reference to Seinfeld, so until now. So well done. We are evolving. You know what? This podcast is getting pretty good. I say.
We're about to hit
So
our
people that are on
stride
episode 22
right toward the end.
Yeah, any minute now. Anybody that's on 22, oh boy, wait till you get here. You're gonna be like, these guys. We heard the evolution.
They were here to witness it. Well, Jeff Smith, Cluedoc.com. You can find more about me on Gilmore.com. Got a lot of cool interviews I'm going to be dropping soon. But until next time, this has been Clue the Movie Podcast, and we'll be back with minute 50.
Whoa.